Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of the Forrin podcast. As usual, I am recording this in Odense in Denmark. My name is Mike Bowden, and there's someone else on the line.
My name's Patrick Garrett. I'm recording this in Montpellier in France.
Fantastic.
Can't believe I got every episode we get to another number, another +1, Mike. It just blows my mind.
It's like mass. It just keeps on. You just keep on adding.
I know,
it
just keeps going.
The math just gets bigger. And we're recording again. So, hello everyone.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yo. Hopefully this time I'll be in focus.
Here's
hoping.
You looked amazing last time, Pat. I think. Yeah.
Always. I've had a shave.
Yeah, you have.
And I've had a haircut.
Yeah.
So
and you've updated your profile picture on your Facebook. Everybody follow Pat and spam him all the time. He needs it. He needs to work. We needs to work out, and he needs his life on the internet. That's like everybody else.
Follow me on Instagram. I am at Lord Pat.
Yeah, it's a sort of very kind of dumbed down sort of name. It's just inconspicuous there. Lord Pat. But
it says it doesn't say anything about me and my insane ego at all. But that's just something something I have to live with, Mike, and I suffer. I tell you.
Yeah. It's tough at the top, Pat.
It's hard being me.
But if
who would be me? In fact, no one else could be me.
But if you come at the king, you better not miss. That's the so anyone out there who thinks they can take his place, you better watch it.
You literally can't.
If anyone's listening for the first time, hello. We had quite outstanding amount of feedback from the interview that went live this week with my colleague Nerma from.
Very good interview. I thought it was. That's it. Don't get that name wrong.
Yeah, I can't get it right, but yeah. Nerma,
it's a bit of a tricky pronunciation if you're not used to Slavic languages, I would say.
She's lived quite the life, though.
Yeah. I would definitely, if you haven't listened to that. Anyone who's listening, please do go and listen to it. It's a really amazing story, and I would like to thank her very much for speaking to Mike. It was a really, really amazing thing to listen to. Yeah,
and hopefully in the future, maybe next month, hopefully there'll be someone else we can talk to. There's a few irons in the fire as far as that's concerned. So, but we've got to keep people in suspense. I'm not going to reveal everything all at once. We've also had quite a few emails this week. Thank you for those.
Yeah.
So many that we can't get through them all.
I think we're going to address one. I think.
Yeah.
I think we decided we're going to deal with one as a topic for this week. And which one is that, Mike?
It's from a listener called Kat. Whose name I believe is short for Katrine, Catherine, the sort of Danish version of the name Catherine. And anyway, should we just get on with it? Should we just go for it?
Let's go.
Kat writes, "Hi Forrin podcast." That's us, Pat. Having two languages, do you find that there are situations where you prefer one language over another? Does one language support one part of your personality better than the other? Do you feel confident expressing certain ideas in one language over another? And do you switch between languages when you think about different topics? I hope my question makes sense in writing. All the best, Kat. And she has kind of sent a follow-up. I think it was sort of meant as a sort of half joke. There's an Instagram account called Language Nerds, and anyway they've got these sort of a meme up, but I think the meme is quite interesting and relevant anyway. I think it's meant slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it says here, you're not a true bilingual until number one, your personality changes when you switch between languages. Number two, you find something 10 times funnier in your first language, and number three, you get sad to more songs. And that's maybe a starting point for any kind of conversation. But but Pat, I'll ask you the question first, because my answer, as usual, is long, convoluted, and I don't really know what it is. So, Having two languages, Pat, do you find there are situations where you prefer? There are about three questions in there, so we'll take one at a time. Do you find there are situations where you prefer one language over another, apart from obviously doing this podcast?
Yeah, definitely. Just to explain my situation for people who haven't been listening or who are listening for the first time, I was born in Britain. I moved to France. I've been in France for 14 years.
And you miss Britain terribly.
Oh yeah, I really miss that shit. And we speak English at home.
Yes.
I'm a student. I'm doing a master's course, and I do all of that in French. So there's a clear divide. So, like, to answer the question, do I find that there are situations where I prefer one language over the other? There's a really, really clean split for me, because basically everything that happens in the home is in English. And everything that happens in my, in inverted commas, professional life is in French. So there is a blurred bit to this question, because I consume a lot of media in English. Like, in fact, almost all of the media I consume, the visual media I consume, such as films and TV, is in English, and normally American, actually. Whereas almost everything I read on paper and academically is in French. That's starting to change a bit now, because I'm about to sort of like go into a doctorate, hopefully, and the amount of stuff I'm consuming in English is actually increasing quite a lot. So that sort of like bleeds into the second bit of that question. But before I go into that, I don't know. The thing is, like, the question is, do I prefer one language over another in certain situations?
Do you prefer? Yeah, are there certain situations where you prefer one language over another?
I'm not sure. I don't really know how to answer that, because I don't have a huge amount of choice over it. I mean, like, I don't sort
maybe
of,
on reflection, though, if you look back, do you think, okay, I could have explained that better if I could have spoken English there? Or do you think actually maybe there are some French idioms, some ways to say things in French that kind of, actually kind of suit perfectly what you want to say, where that might not actually be the case in English? Does that make sense?
I think it does. Yeah, just to give an example of how this does affect me, like the masters I'm doing, where we've talked about this before on this podcast, like the situation in France in terms of English has changed quite a lot in the last generation. So, like, I assume most of you listening will know that, like, throughout, obviously, like, English is like a kind of default language in Europe, and it has been for like quite a while. But there was a lot of resistance to that in France for sort of like nationalist reasons. So now there's this huge push now that that sort of generation is a bit older, amongst the sort of younger generation, there's this massive push to learn English. So in my masters, like, for example, I would say probably about in the last year, maybe a good sort of like 40% of my lessons have actually been in English. And to be honest, I don't want to sound big-headed if any of my comrades, if any of the other students in my class are listening to this, but it actually makes the lessons really easy for me, because I don't have a language barrier, and actually it's kind of the inverse of my entire sort of like university career has been like listening to these like really like literary and intellectual lectures in French. So it kind of gets flipped on its head, and I can see that the other students in my class are kind of going through exactly what I went through when I had to sort of sit in these lectures, and somebody at like a master's level is delivering a lecture on, like, I don't know, gay rights or whatever in English, and they're just sort of like sitting there just going, oh my God, because there's just so much vocabulary that they're not used to at all. They may be able to sort of like converse, like, well enough, and they've watched a bunch of like British TV, but that's not the same as being taught in a different language.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, do I prefer English in that situation? To be honest, actually, yeah, because it like makes everything like loads easier, but like also no, because it means that I'm kind of not learning anything. I'm not being challenged. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can't relate to it, but I understand it, definitely. Yeah.
So what do you have situations where you prefer speaking in Danish, for example?
I prefer English 100% of the time. every waking moment of my life. It's the best language in the world, Pet. I mean, what a ridiculous question.
Of course.
No, there are lots of times when I prefer Danish. I think Danish, there are, yeah, I mean, it was basically the reason behind why I asked you is there are just some idioms in Danish that just sort of work. And obviously now I've said that, I can't think of any of them. But there are.
It's funny, yeah. Like it's funny. Like like I'm exactly the same.
So,
like,
but there are. Trust me. And probably in 3 episodes' time, I'll say, remember when I said that? And I have one ready. But there are just certain situations. I think it becomes now. I mean, if I could choose, I would just talk a mix of both.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even there is something here. There was a sort of a funny. Oh, yeah, Danes, in Denmark, not Danes. In Denmark, they have a tradition at Christmas where there's something called like an advent calendar, but it's a TV program. And there's an episode every single day for 24 days or whatever. And it's like a build-up story, and it's usually sort of fantasy, whatever. But there was one that they actually called it the Christmas, an advent calendar is called a julekalender, which is just a Christmas calendar. And there was one called the julekalender. And it was basically it was a sort of a bit of a comedy one, a bit more adult. And it was people kind of directly translating Danish to English and sort of playing around with the languages. And a lot of people, when I kind of sometimes speak and I maybe mix it up, or I'll kind of translate an English idiom directly to Danish, which you obviously can't do, then, I'll get called this the julekalender. But actually, that's a very long-winded way of saying that is actually how I'd like to do it, because I think there are some phrases and some words that, like right now, I'm actually thinking what I want to say in Danish and I'm translating it to English. I was going to say falder mig naturligt ind, which means there are some words and phrases that come to me more naturally. There you go. Than in English, because I use it all the time. I also speak Danish pretty much to my kids. It's only quite a new thing that I've started to speak more English to my kids. So if I could, I would actually speak both. But do I prefer one over the other? Well, again, find there are situations. What situations would I be in? I think if I'm communicating with someone who is maybe Danish, but who I kind of know understands English, if I then want to say something like I'm serious or something where I'm being very direct or frank or even open with that person, then I'll probably change to English. Okay. Kind of almost in some weird way trying to add some sort of gravity, some gravitas to the situation. Now I am talking to you directly. Because Danish sometimes can feel like a kind of a very comfortable, easily fitting but mask that I kind of put on. Whereas, there are some situations where, if I'm being frank, honest or open or direct, then then it will be in English. Also, if I lose my temper, it will be English. But I can.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that absolutely. Like basically, if I'm riding around on my bike, for example, and like someone nearly knocks me off my bike or whatever, I will always swear in English. So like when for example, I can really relate to that. So like for example, when I'm riding around on my bike and I sort of get into a bit of a dangerous situation, if I swear at somebody or if I sort of shout at somebody, "Oh, you bloody idiot" or whatever, I'll do it in English. But to be honest, like the sort of mix between the two, it's interesting you say that, because I definitely find I'm doing a work placement at the moment, and I'm sort of being introduced to I'm working in an office, I'm working in a video production company. And I only speak in French there. Like, no one speaks to me in English. I mean, they can speak a bit of English, but like not, the odd phrase. They're not bad, but they no one speaks in English. I've had a couple of people who actually, it's like a sort of how do you say it in English? It's like a sharing space sort of thing. Like,
it's not. What's the word? It's not codependency. It sounds like.
It's a place where there are a bunch of offices, where people can just sort of like hire spaces to work or whatever. And so, we sort of have, A lot of the time we'll have lunch together. There have been a couple of people. There's a lady that lived in Britain for I think like 13 years, and she can speak amazing English, and we speak a bit in English, but the rest of them speak French, obviously, and we don't. So yeah, my entire life in the office is in French, and I find that since I've been there, obviously, which is one of the reasons I did it, I find that I'm becoming genuinely bilingual. I know that might sound a bit weird because I've been here for a really long time. I've been here for like 14 years, but and I know this is something that you probably went through a long time ago because your situation is basically Danish, and like because my home situation is all in English. Even though I've been in like university for like the last sort of 6.5 years or whatever.
That's mental. Jesus.
Yeah, I haven't it's very different like being in a lecture situation where you're just kind of like listening to somebody, or being in a work situation where you're constantly conversing with people and communicating and having meetings and blah blah. So what you said about like mixing the languages is definitely true, and like I definitely find that when I'm kind of like walking around talking to myself, which I do a lot, constantly like rehearsing things that I'm going to say. I still have to do like a lot of presentations and so forth for school. Most of it's in French now, actually, and like I definitely do. Even when I'm kind of like just thinking, just like formulating ideas. Part of the cat's question is, do you feel more confident expressing certain ideas in one language over another? I'm finding that it's more and more the case that I'm more confident expressing myself in French. So like it's what you were saying about like there's certain situations where you're kind of being you, if you like. I don't really have that facility like where I can just suddenly switch to English because I'm not surrounded by people that speak English.
Exactly. Yeah, I get that.
So I'm getting to the point where I really can just like flip between the two like with no problem. I can say literally anything in either language, and it's I kind of feel like I'm kind of myself in both languages. That's all like first part of the
question.
Does one language support one part of your personality better than the other? That is going away. That has been the case, but that's definitely disappearing for me now, I think.
Yeah, I think in terms of humour, but I'm going to roll back actually. In terms of when I'm at work and I'm at work meetings, there's a difference. When I'm talking to my colleagues, I can just be me, and sometimes I can mix it up. But yeah, 90% of the time, I'm speaking Danish. There's no problem. I can laugh with them. I can joke. I can small talk with them. But it's strange when I'm at a meeting. I think I'm very direct in my language. And I say what I think, Pat, and I think what I say, No,
don't pull those punches.
No, that's it. I'm just, I wouldn't know how to if I was asked. But what's it called? So I'm really kind of conscious. I mean, yeah, I think I've also maybe it's just my personality. But again, this is about individuals, so I can't really talk for everybody else. But I think a lot. I can put people's noses out of joint. Especially, and this is what I've heard. I don't want to generalize out there, but I think I've mentioned it before. But this is what I've been told that Danes are very kind of I don't know what it's called. I don't even know if there's a word for it. Again, conflict scoot. Scoot means you're shy. Okay. So they don't really like sort of a conflict. They don't like to, where I'm kind of there's the elephant in the room. And we're not really talking about it.
You're going to shoot it.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about it. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll describe it, perfectly for you, and then ask you to like address it. And that doesn't. And I think if I could do that in English, I just think there'd just be more nuance to my language. I get a bit kind of how do I express this, and now. When I say these kind of things, I will kind of have this sort of intro of, look, don't take this the wrong way. I do mean this constructive. I do mean this in a constructive way, but this is how I'm going to say it. so I say it. Whereas I feel that if I could do that in English, then I could
probably be a bit more polite.
A bit more maybe polite or just less confrontational. And
no, I experience exactly the same thing. Like, because basically I have fewer ways to say things than a native French person would. So like, you know, I just have to kind of say it. And you know, like I've got a meeting at work actually tomorrow, and I know there's going to be it's going to be a bit tense. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like it's I have to. There are no. You're absolutely right. If I was saying it in English, like, you know, I would be able to phrase it with a lot less, I don't know, effect. I probably will have to like literally say like just as you said, I'm being constructive, and like, you know, I'm not trying to sort of like criticize you. I'd probably say this in English, but I'd be able to say it with a lot more speed and fluidity than I can in French.
Yeah.
You know, and like when you know, I've just noticed that I don't know if it's the same in Danish. Do you have a polite form and a sort of
for some words, there is a kind of a polite, like asking for things. There's a polite way of doing it. There's polite words.
Do you have 2 words for you?
Yes.
Okay. Like it's the same in French. It's like mega important. Like if you.
Oh right. You don't do that to like you don't do that to the king. You say
no.
You'd say d. You'd say d and not do.
Okay. In French, it's vous and tu. So like, you know, if somebody that you're not, if there's a hierarchical situation in any way, there are 2. Honestly, this is a nightmare. I'm going to explain this briefly. This is a ridiculous topic, and like I hope we come back to.
You love hierarchy, so yeah, go for it.
Seriously, like basically, if somebody's in a position of, if you don't know somebody very well, you have to say vous.
Right.
If you say tu to that person, they will probably be literally offended with you. Like, so if I just like bumped into somebody on the street, it's the same in like Italian, for example. You can't like, but it is the same in Italian, I think. I know because I've been there, and they kind of forgive you because you're not Italian or whatever. But like in French, after a while, like you kind of, it's a mistake that you just can't make because people get really pissed off. And if you don't say, for example, I could never say to a teacher. I just couldn't do that. Even though, like, you know, a lot of the teachers are younger than me, for example. There's a hierarchical situation which demands that I show them that respect and say vous. But like, it's not as black and white as that. Like, it's not just a question of respect. It, like, the vous and the tu basically denotes a level of intimacy. It's basically really hard to explain and judge if you're not French, because like if like all of the people I work with are tu. There are no vous there, but there are people that will say bonjour, which is the vous hello,
right,
and then they'll say tu. And but if you say salut to those person, which is hi, or, you know, roughly translated as hi, then that'll put their nose out of joint, even though they're saying tu to you. It's such a pain in the ass.
Right.
I don't know how I got onto this, like, but like seriously, it's just something that's driven me fucking insane for years. It's an absolute nightmare.
You got onto it because you've got a meeting tomorrow where maybe you're going to have to kind of be a bit more direct than you otherwise would be.
So basically, like when you kind of like you have to literally ask someone. This is I'm not making this up. Like, I still can't actually believe that this is the case in 2024. When you sort of like know somebody, like you say, you have to actually say, I'm gonna tutoyer on se dit tu, or, you know, like, which means that I'm about to cross this threshold with you, this sort of like politeness threshold with you, where we are about to become slightly closer than vous, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
you're going to do that tomorrow, eh?
Oh no! Like basically, all of the people I work with, we say tu. Right. So like, but my boss, he had to say to me, like, you know, well, is it okay if we say tu to each other? Because we're not. Oh, fuck it! It's a fucking nightmare, honestly. Anyway, like, obviously, I said.
I understand. He had to sort of ask to come into that kind of sphere. You have to kind of announce it.
Exactly that. And like
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is that if you're not native French, there are a million like politeness pitfalls that you can like fall into. So like if you're being like too direct with somebody, and you don't kind of they don't quite get that you're not doing it on purpose or blah de blah, then you're basically behaving in their eyes as somebody that's just being like really really aggressive,
Right.
basically. And I said all of that based on what you said about
Work.
something else. I can't really remember.
People at work. When I say something at work, I mean, the thing is, I get. I mean, I really do mean this ironically for people who maybe don't get my humour, but now I understand how a lot of women feel, because seriously, just hear me out. Because when I say something like that at work, that kind of, and I can sort of see put noses out of joint, right?
Yeah.
Someone will say, I think what Mike was trying to say was...
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But the thing is, they'll just put it so eloquently, and they'll get it, and they really will hit the mark, and they'll actually say out loud, I could have probably said it like he did, or,
Yeah.
And so, there's that, I've got kind of like one way of saying it, where and other people will sort of understand my point, and hopefully maybe, well, it doesn't matter if they agree with it or not, but I'll often be kind of... I'll often be sort of translated to sort of maybe a polite, less confrontational Danish, and which is a good thing because I learn. But I haven't learned. So it's 24 years, I still haven't learned. But that's it. Yeah. But it's that can actually annoy me. I mean, not that they do it, but again, feeling foreign and feeling, that is when I kind of feel, okay, I haven't said that. The way people have taken it, the way the reaction has been, in the crowd, that wasn't really what I wanted to sort of get out of the people. I just wanted to say this, I don't agree with this, and this is why I don't agree with it. But in saying that, I've maybe I don't know, sort of challenged my boss's authority and insinuated that everyone in the room who does actually agree with it is an idiot. And, and that isn't really what I wanted to say. That wasn't the effect I was going for.